All right, so moving on to the final segment. I'll be in the world. We're going to be pivoting to the world of wrestling. I'll be sharing my top 5 WWE Money in the Bank cash-ins. So this list, I'll be moving from. I'll go from number 5 all the way down to number 1. What I do believe have been the best WWE Money in the Bank successful cash-ins in WWE history thus far. Starting off with number 5, I have Rob Van Dam's Money in the Bank cash-in that he did on John Cena at ECW's One Night Stand in 2006. Now, that One Night Stand pay-per-view in 2006 that was dedicated to ECW might be one of the most hostile pay-per-views in WWE history. I mean, that crowd, that Philadelphia crowd was disrespecting any single wrestler that was not an ECW original. Now, I'm talking big names of John Cena. I'm talking Randy Orton. I'm talking Batista, The Big Show. They did not care who you were. If you were not an ECW original, you got disrespected that night in Philadelphia. But looking back on it, Rob Van Dam actually did a Money in the Bank cash-in that had the champion and himself on an even playing field, because we all know the Money in the Bank cash-ins are really opportunistic ways to become a world champion. But Rob Van Dam warned John Cena ahead of time, told him I'm cashing in Money in the Bank in a one-on-one match against you at this time, at this pay-per-view, and that's how Rob Van Dam cashed in. So we did get a good one-on-one affair between John Cena and Rob Van Dam. It was a good 20-minute match between Cena and Rob Van Dam, but the match ended with Edge costing John Cena the WWE Championship when Edge came into the ring and speared John Cena, nearly broke him in half. And then you had Rob Van Dam hit the picture-perfect 5-star frog splash to have a picture-perfect ending to an ECW pay-per-view, a one-night stand. Rob Van Dam successfully cashed in, held the WWE Championship and the ECW Championship at the same time. It didn't last long, though. He dropped, I believe it was like a 21, 22 day reign with him holding both the titles. And unfortunately, in 2006, he actually dropped the title on Raw in a triple threat match with Cena and Edge. Then the next night on ECW, he dropped the ECW title to The Big Show. So it was unfortunate we didn't see him hold the titles for much longer, but he's the only man in WWE history to hold both titles at the same time. That cash-in is number 5 on my list. And number 4, now this one was sickening. I have Edge's cash-in on The Undertaker on Friday Night SmackDown episode in 2007. Now, I remember watching the classic steel cage match between Batista and The Undertaker. That goes down in my heart as one of my favorite rivalries in WWE history that I watched growing up. But that match, the steel cage match, was a great classic match that ended up in a draw with both men touching the floor at the same time, escaping the cage, which ended up in a draw, which Undertaker retained the title. Then, moments after the match, Undertaker's already busted open. He got beat down by a returning Mark Henry that beat him down, beat him up. And then moments later, you seen Edge cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase on a vulnerable Undertaker. And man, the rest was history. Edge cashed in Money in the Bank for the second time, and this time he became the World Heavyweight Champion, cashing in on The Undertaker. I remember I was a second grader, stayed up late watching Friday Night SmackDown, and I just remember as a kid breaking down in tears, crying in front of the TV because Undertaker has always been my favorite wrestler. And I was so upset that Edge cashed in on him. I was so upset my dad had to put me to bed that night. I was upset watching the television. But man, that cash in was pretty good. And I have to say, that goes down as number 4 on my list. Now, number three on my list is Dolph Ziggler's cash in on Alberto Del Rio and on the Raw after WrestleMania back in 2013. Now, back in the day, Raw after WrestleMania used to have a lot of significance to it. It had a lot of surprises, and we don't really see that on Raws after WrestleMania at this point in the WWE. But when Dolph Ziggler cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase on Alberto Del Rio, he blew off the arena. I mean, right before that, Alberto Del Rio had a WrestleMania rematch, I believe against Jack Swagger for the World Heavyweight Championship. As I digress, Alberto Del Rio was vulnerable. He was hurt. He barely retained the title. And then moments later, Dolph Ziggler's music hit. The arena erupted. You knew Dolph Ziggler was ready to cash in that Money in the Bank opportunity. And he did it. And now it was a quick match between himself and Del Rio. He got his moment with the crowd, and the crowd had his back. And it was one of the greatest moments I remember as a youngster growing up, watching the PG era of Dolph Ziggler finally win the World Heavyweight Championship in the right way. And it was unfortunate that his World Heavyweight Championship reign did not last long. I think he only held the title for a month due to having a legitimate concussion injury. And that's sad because that was the last time that he ever held a world title in WWE. Definitely has to go down as one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time, and definitely deserved more in his WWE runs. But that cashing is number 3 on my list. Now, number 2 is Seth Rollins' WrestleMania 31 cash-in. Now, Michael Cole called it the heist of the century when we seen this cash-in take place in 2015, and I have totally agree with him because that was really unique how Seth Rollins cashed in the main event of Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar for WrestleMania 31 in 2015. I mean, both men were down, and all of a sudden the music hit, and Seth Rollins came scrambling to the ring. First man ever to cash in his Money in the Bank contract at WrestleMania. Defeated Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar in a triple threat match to become the WWE champion. That was a great moment, iconic moment. That was Seth Rollins' first time ever holding a world title in the WWE and his first ever WWE championship. What a better way to do it in the main event of WrestleMania, becoming the first man to pull off the heist of the century, winning the Money in the Bank briefcase, cashing in successfully at WrestleMania. That moment has to go number 2 on my list. Now, this one is number 1. Edge is the first ever Money in the Bank cash-in, with Edge cashed in on John Cena at New Year's resolution in 2006 to win the WWE Championship. This was the first ever Money in the Bank cash-in. Edge won the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 21. 9 months later, he finally cashed in on John Cena. It was first ever cash-in WWE history. After John Cena went through a grueling elimination chamber at New Year's resolution, he defeated Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, Kane, Carlito, and Chris Masters in a great elimination chamber match. Cena could barely walk, move. He was bleeding from his head, and Vince McMahon said, "This night ain't over yet." And moments later, Edge came out, shocked everybody, cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase, and got the ultimate nickname, the Ultimate Opportunist, cashing in on Cena, winning his first WWE Championship. I just don't think there's been a better Money in the Bank cash-in than the first one. And the moment was just right. It felt great. It was a shocking moment. I just don't think there's been a better Money in the Bank cash-in. I mean, you could argue and debate that Ziggler's cash-in 2013 was better, but in terms of moments, executing it, and the shock that had everybody in, I just believe that Money in the Bank cash-in is the greatest of all time. But those are my top 5 WWE Money in the Bank cash-ins in WWE history. And that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off. And I'll see you guys on next week's episode.